Hello, everyone, and welcome to our lecture on healthcare settings, claims cycle, and claims processing. I'm Miss Blair, and I'm going to take you through this lecture we're having on current procedural terminology. There's a few expectations that I have for you at the end of our lecture. Now, I want you to relax because we're not going to code. We're not learning the code yet. We're just having an overview of the CPT. And I want you to try to understand the history of the CPT. At the end of our lecture, I think you should understand where the need for CPT codes came from. I think that you will be able to understand and explain the organization of the CPT manual. And then we're going to have something at the end that we're going to call Check Your Understanding, and it's going to deal with medical necessity. And in your entire coding career, you are going to continually hear medical necessity, medical necessity, medical necessity. So get used to that right now. So what's on our agenda? We are going to talk about the birth of the CPT manual. We're going to talk about the AMA. The AMA stands for American Medical Association. We are also going to talk about where the need for the codes came from, what's in the CPT manual, what are the sections, how are the codes put together, modifiers. I know we talked about that with ICD-10, but we also have to talk about it with CPT. Um, we also have to talk about the guidelines, and we're going to talk about some symbols that you will see in the CPT manual. Now, I'm going to show you this video, and this video was made by the editorial panel of the American Medical Association. And let me give you a little background on the AMA. So the AMA created the CPT manual in 1966, and they needed it so there was something that they could use that was standard so that they could code or report a service or procedure. There's a 17-member panel, and every year they go through the CPT code manual. They can delete code, they can update a code, they can change the description, they can add a code. Physicians and practitioners across the United States can petition to have codes added to the CPT because you know that technology changes rapidly, almost minute by minute with the medical field. So let's listen and see what they can share with us about the AMA and the CPT. It's going to take another second to pull up the video.
CPT is important because it provides a specified medical procedures and services. So it allows us to have this language of consistency across all stakeholders.
So that we can have health services research on all different services and performance. We can associate the care that's given with the best health outcomes.
I've got this great new healthcare opportunity in this new online search for delivering healthcare to patients. I get my data together, I get my specifics of how the healthcare system might be changing, and I present it to the CPT editorial panel.
The panel is made up of 17 people who are experts in our field.
We represent broad spectrum of medical specialties in geographic locations, private, independent, large groups of researchers.
Clinicians, representatives of the payer community, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, psychologists or optometrists.
Insurance agencies, as CMS government regulatory seats, so we have a large skill set at the table.
Most important way that the CPT editorial panel and the process stays up to date and considers everybody's needs is by being an open process. And anybody can submit a code change proposal. It will be reviewed by the CPT editorial panel. And now we have an interested party process. This means that people outside of CPT can check on the website, see what we're talking about. They can provide their own personal input. And we're seeing up to 100 applications that are being reviewed by outside interested parties per site. CPT is very involved in the frontiers of medicine, including digital health.
It's trying to keep up with the current and future needs of the medical community to identify services that we receive.
We've become very involved in genomics. We have a tier 1, tier 2, MAAA, NGS. We have the Pathology Coding Caucus, the Molecular Pathology Advisory Committee. We've created the PLA section, the Proprietary Laboratory Analysis section, which is really morphed into an entirely new system, meeting the responsibilities and the requirements of CMS. It gives us the ability to take these advances in medicine and turn them into something that can be used in a fatigue classes.
Be the process, understand it well, and then anyone can participate.
Well, a lot goes into creating the CPT, and it should, because there are a lot of services in the CPT book, and it goes way back to 1845, when the New York Medical Society said, hey, why don't we have a national society? And then 2 years later, they established the AMA. And then in 1923, they started to promote preventative medicine, even though, we're still trying to catch up with preventative medicine. 1966, AMA released CPT. At first, Black physicians really were not allowed into the AMA. It wasn't until 2008 that an apology was given, and they being the AMA, started to recruit Black physicians, and today the head of the president of the AMA is a Black woman. And so AMA has come a long way, but we need them. Definitely, our coders and our billers need to be very familiar with the AMA. So, why was there a need? We had to get a standardized way of reporting medical, surgical, diagnostic procedures wherever they were performed, whether it was inpatient or outpatient. You are going to have to learn that as we move forward. If you're inpatient, it means you were admitted by a written order. If you were outpatient, you received care. You could be in an outpatient department like lab work or x-ray. You might have even stayed overnight, but you were not actually admitted. We needed a uniform language. We can't have Dr. A long drawn out sentence, and then Dr. B write a long drawn out sentence for the same procedure. However, it's written 2 different ways. However, the third party payer is going to pay us. We needed a management way to read our claims. When we look at our claims, how many services, how many office visits did we review, or how many office visits did we have in this particular month? Did the office visits go up in winter? And what was the diagnosis that went with it? Was it the flu? Was it pneumonia? Things like that. And we use these CPT codes with public insurers like Medicaid, as well as private insurers such as Aetna. So what are we going to find in that CPT? Like I said, we're going to find these codes for professional services, procedures, diagnostic services, therapeutic services. A procedure could be an x-ray. Um, a procedure could be a surgery. A service could be an office visit. It could be a hospital visit where a doc comes to see you at the hospital. A diagnostic is could be a lab test. A diagnostic means we need to use it to diagnose the patient. Therapeutic is, well, we need to treat the patient. How can we use something to treat them? Um, CPT is a language. Medicine uses special languages. As you go to your next course, you will learn about medical terminology, something that coders definitely going to have to know. So it's it's the language that coders speak with third-party payers. CPT is the language that one provider will speak with another provider. It is a language that CPT speaks with ICD-10. Remember, that's the diagnosis. And so those two codes have to speak so that we can establish medical necessity. So the common thread with all this language and everybody speaking with each other is the use of words in a structured and conventional way. So no matter what we say, every time we say something or every time we use a code, it means the exact same thing every time we use it, unless that code has been revised or updated by the AMA. So we have a code structure, and you do not need a coding book in this class, okay? But just to know what the CPT is like. So it's a 5-digit. It could be numeric or it could be an alphanumeric, okay? 5-digit code. The CPT manual itself is broken into these particular 6 categories. And each of these categories are broken down and they have a code range. For example, um, radiology is the 80,000 range. Okay. The book is in numerical order except for evaluation and management. Reason that's not in numerical order, it starts with the 90,000 series or the 99,000 series, is because it is the most widely used range of codes by any particular provider. Therefore, it was put in the front of the book so that it could be uh, used and it could be seen immediately without having to flip through it. We call evaluation and management E&M. So what else is in the CPT manual? There's modifiers. A modifier is a 2-digit numeric, alphanumeric, or alphabetic character. I want to say code, but it's not really a code. Um, uh, we'll say it's a code. And we say that it's appended. So you kind of place it at the end of a CPT code. And what it does is it tells you something else about the code. It doesn't change the code, but it will give you information about that code. And so we as coders, and you will learn when you have to add the code or when you have to add the modifier to the end of the code. It's all based on the documentation. There is an appendix in the back of the CPT book that has all of your modifiers in there with the descriptions. So you don't have to try to memorize it. You'll just go to the back of the book and you look it up, but you'll have to know when to apply it. Well, when do you apply it? Guidelines, you have to know what those are. Guidelines are basically rules, and it says when X happens, you do Y. Okay. Um, and they define and they explain the code assignment for a particular service or procedure. Um, the guidelines apply to each CPT section that we looked at. Remember, we saw anesthesia, we saw E&M. Those guidelines at the beginning of those particular sections only apply to that section. So if you see a guideline in radiology, it only applies to the radiology section. Okay, you can't go back and forth. Carefully review your code, your guidelines before you assign a code, because if you do not apply the guidelines properly, then you may assign your code incorrectly. Your claim will not pay, it will be denied and sent back. Your guidelines are only for code assignment. They are not for coverage purposes, meaning the, the guidelines don't tell you whether your insurance company is going to cover the service. It just tells you how to bill it or how to code it. And the coverage is up to your insurance company. There's also symbols in the CPT manual, and each symbol has a specific meaning. And the symbols will be at the bottom of each page of your CPT, the definitions, and then next to your code, you'll see one of these particular symbols. You'll get to know what they mean. The red circle, you know that's a new code. The plus sign, you know that's an add-on code. And so instead of writing all these words next to a code, you don't do that. That book would be so huge, it's already large. You just, made a legend, use symbols, and you don't have to memorize those either because they're right in the bottom of the book, at the bottom of the pages. So that's great also. So here we are. We're going to check your understanding. We're going back to medical necessities. So this is a true or false. Coding for medical necessity is assigning ICD-10 CM codes to diagnoses and CPT codes to procedures, services, or supplies, and then matching the appropriate ICD-10 code with each CPT code on a claim. So that's true or false. So we basically, is it true or false that you match a CPT with an ICD-10, which tells your insurance company why the service occurred? Like Jeopardy. And of course, our answer is true. That's the definition of medical necessity. So, as you know, we always do a rapid wrap up. So, relax and breathe. Information from today's lecture is also in chapter 7. You are, of course, free to do any other type of research. Always read your textbook, or you can listen to it. Help is available, and your instructor is always there for you. Contact academic services for one-on-one help, and don't wait to the end of the class to say, come help me, please. It takes a strong person to go get help when you need it. If you have computer problems, call tech support. Your instructor can't help you, okay? Tech support, that's what they do. So, next time we're going to talk about another code set. It's called HICPICS, and I will see you then. And thank you for your attention. I'll see you next time.